Delhi has been promising that we'll have number of buses increased over the years, but unfortunately the number that they keep promising and the reality on ground is not matching.
I think institutions like CAQM should just be dismantled because their mandate is not just to be an association.
If an EV is running on coal, that's not really clean. Relatively cleaner than maybe a diesel vehicle, but it's still polluting somewhere else.
Today, the youngsters, the toddlers, probably every child has had, is on a nebulizer in Delhi or is probably, on some antibiotic or the other.
Today is the first so-called air pollution debate of this season.
A truck which is about to enter Delhi has been loaded in Sonipat, Panipat or Karnal, Kurukshetra, anywhere, has travelled 5 hours and came to the boundary at the Delhi entry, and suddenly GRAP is introduced and that truck has been told that you can't enter Delhi now because GRAP stage 3 is in place or whatever.
The madness towards mindless construction, and when we talk about construction, which also means cutting down of trees, and the entire thing of compensative afforestation, which is another scam that we have in the country.
I mean, if I have to wait at a bus stop for 20 minutes for a journey which will take 20 minutes, next day I'm not going to take that.
We try to solve water crisis, we ended up creating air crisis. We'll try to solve air crisis, we'll end up creating a cancer crisis.
And the last winter, we did this little survey of going to your own local pharmacists, and we came out with alarming data for ourselves also, that every third customer was a child. Something to do with breathing, respiratory, equipment, etc.
Most of the geographies or NCR regions are controlled by one political party, and that's why a lot of time which was lost in saying that there is no coordination and different political parties or the governments are not coordinating with each other, that might not happen so much this year.
But
though we still have one state.
Punjab doesn't have double engine sarkar. The right to clean air is a fundamental right under Article 21 of the Constitution. This right, as we have seen for more than last 2 decades, has been trampled upon with impunity every winter in Delhi-NCR cities. Under Newslaundry's Fight to Breathe campaign, we have decided to hold a roundtable discussion with 4 experts. We'll discuss how Delhi and its neighboring cities are bracing for air pollution in the upcoming days. What are the challenges and opportunities in our fight against air pollution? I'm joined by Vimlendu Jha, co-founder of Swechha India, Sunil Dahiya, founder and lead analyst at Environcatalyst, and Nivedita Khandekar, a senior journalist at PTI. We'll be shortly joined by Bhavreen Khandari, who is co-founder of Warrior Moms, a network of mothers demanding clean air for their children. These experts are also part of our panel under Newslaundry's Fight to Breathe campaign. Welcome all of you for joining us.
Thank you.
Before I ask the first question, let me tell you how we coughed and sneezed through the last winter. Delhi was the most polluted city, according to a report by Center for Science and Environment. Average PM 2.5 concentration in the last winter was 159 per cubic meter, which comes under very poor category. In 2023-2024, the PM 2.5 average was 179, which was more. I want to throw this open to all of you. Compared to previous winter, where do we stand now? Does the picture look rosy, or it's as grim as it was previously? Vimlendu, if you want to start.
So I think, right now, again, this is 2025, and I don't think it's going to be any different from what 2024 was, or perhaps what 2015 was. Unfortunately, I don't know if it's, today is the first so-called air pollution debate of this season. And so congratulations, Team Laundry, for inaugurating the month of air pollution conversation in that sense, or air crisis in that sense. And of course, so therefore, all of us, I'm very, very sure that we'll dig out our notes. And notes are not going to be different from what the notes were last year or last year. Statistics more or less remains the same. I'm very sure that, if I would have sent you my video from last year of what things that we said, and I'm sure what Sunil said is going to remain the same. Perhaps, yes, this year, given the monsoon, in the context of the weather events, the extreme weather events that have taken place, maybe there'll be a delay, maybe there'll be a notch less, notch more of air pollution, but largely air pollution governance of the entire North India specifically. Unfortunately, we only talk about North India, or for that matter, we only talk about Delhi. Ideally, it's a pan-India problem, and then it's a pan-North India problem. It's going to be the same. And although the promise, of course, a lot has changed. I was telling you earlier. Indeed, there's a new government that we have, and in Delhi. And therefore, that entire thing of the toxicity in the air was one thing, but there was also toxicity in politics. At least there's a promise of reduction of that, because now we cannot say, oh well, isne kar diya ji, ya usne kar diya ji. Ab to Rekha ji has everything that she has in power, but we don't really see anything. Unfortunately, today when I opened the newspaper, I saw that October, November again they're trying to propose cloud seeding. I think it's almost like a joke, which I don't know. Hope it remains a joke, because every year in the month of October, November, we hear the great grand news of cloud seeding. I was very, very surprised that it was actually happening in the monsoon month. And sometimes, someone actually said that ये बारिश जो है वो cloud seeding वाली बारिश तो नहीं हो रही है दिल्ली में. तो इस साल फिर से cloud seeding की चर्चा हो रही है. भगवान करे कि सिर्फ चर्चा ही हो ना. But yes, again, we are back to the drama, the theatrics of air pollution and the collapse of air quality governance of North India.
Right. I have few questions on cloud seeding, which will I ask later in this as we go along. Nivedita ma'am, you wrote an article in 2017 for Daily O, and it seems that nothing has changed. The questions that you asked in that article, the article is headlined "How to Rid India of Terrifying Pollution Once and for All." Could you tell us what you wrote in that article? And
unfortunately, as he just now pointed out, if we compare notes, or if we compare what we have written earlier or what the experts have said in earlier years, nothing has changed. There are only bits and pieces of progress, not as much as it could have been. For instance, I had given a series of steps that this should have happened, but this did not happen. This should have happened, but this didn't. And there's this long list of steps. Something as simple, number of buses to be increased. Because world over, wherever we have seen drastic decrease in pollution in urban centers, a major contributing factor has been vehicular pollution. For instance, we have seen Beijing, they changed their transportation pattern. Delhi has been promising that we'll have number of buses increased over the years, but unfortunately the number that they keep promising and the reality on ground is not matching.
In fact, the number of buses has decreased in the last
Indeed,
1 year.
Indeed.
Earlier it was somewhere around 8,000 public buses. Now it is reduced to some 6,000.
Yes.
Because some old vehicles were decommissioned.
Yes. And then there are always the problems of routes and the frequency of the buses. And every care is taken not to encourage public transport. I mean, if I have to wait at a bus stop for 20 minutes for a journey which will take 20 minutes, next day I am not going to take that.
So in a way, you're incentivizing people to buy new vehicles, because who would wait for 20 minutes, especially in Delhi?
Because, see, we have large number of auto rickshaws. We have large number of, one good thing, the small thing which bits and pieces have increased. One good thing is we have a massive number of battery operated rickshaws now. So at least small journeys, those rickshaws have replaced. Unfortunately, earlier it used to be all fossil fuel operated. Now it's
so last mile connectivity
operated.
has improved to some extent.
To some extent. But if I have to sincerely contribute to reducing my footprint in terms of vehicular pollution, and I want to take the bus, there's no incentive for me today, because the bus condition is also bad. Then we also see a lot of point sources of pollution in Delhi. Number of steps have been taken to target those, to reduce those point sources of pollution and all that stuff. But the exact action where it can be taken is not yet done, for a simple fact which I understand, maybe the experts can tell better. The sensors, the number of sensors that we have, Those were also promised that will increase citywide sensors, but those have not increased as much as they could have. One example, if you permit
Sensors, you're
me
talking
time.
about air pollution monitoring devices.
Yes. Anand Vihar, a place where I stay near Anand Vihar. I'm not in Anand Vihar. I stay near Anand Vihar. Is one of the notorious places. Every year it will see in
Off
peak
the
season
charts.
of the charts. If you go there, one end of Anand Vihar is like the most polluted and the other end of Anand Vihar is not. Why? Because that T point, the Anand Vihar ISBT and the metro and the railway station, on the other side of the road is the UP bus stand. So the buses stay there for long. The buses U-turns taking time, traffic jams, everything constantly, they're just there. So it all adds to the vehicular pollution and it goes off the chart every year. If you go to other end of the Anand Vihar, it's not as bad. But then the sensor is there, but sensor is not here. And if we compare the number of devices that Delhi needs, it's way too less. I mean, there are just two examples. I can go on and go on.
I mean, here I want to blow my own trumpet because I did an investigation on air pollution monitoring devices, where they are located. Mostly they are located in public parks or they are covered from either side, or so it may not be able to capture the actual air quality of Delhi.
Yes, but Anand Vihar is not like that.
Anand Vihar, because so it's there in the CPCB guidelines that air pollution monitoring devices should not be close to sources of pollution.
Yes,
because the placement is also very problematic.
Exactly. So that's part of the
it's
problem.
Just next to the exit of the bus exit point.
Yes, and the industrial Patparganj industrial estate is right next to it.
Right.
It's less than 500 meters away.
Right.
So it all contributes, and so we don't have the correct reading.
Yeah. Sunil, what's your assessment compared to last year? Are we going to see some changes? Any measures that you've thought that it's a good measure taken by government?
So I partially agree to the statement that things have not changed from past year, and not just past year, last few years. But things which should not have changed, some of those things have changed. For example, I would have talked about it later on, but thermal power plants which were regulated till earlier this year, they were supposed to install some pollution controlling devices according to the emission standard notification which came out in 2015. That has been taken away. So now these big polluters have a free license to keep emitting high emission sources. So that changed. The other thing which has not been talked about a lot, so we've been looking at some of the transport sector data. We are still investigating why this is happening. But what we are seeing is, last year we started seeing a lot of white color autos in the city. Those were electric autos. How many do we see now? Not many. And the data suggests that this year, almost all of the three-wheeler passenger vehicles which are autos registered are CNG. No electric. What happened suddenly this year that we have gone back to a technology which we were using earlier while we are pushing for large EV push. We are investigating this.
So you're still investigating. Just
why
looking for reasons why.
So that has changed. Some good things has also happened, as Vimlendu mentioned, that this year most of the geographies or NCR regions are controlled by one political party, and that's why a lot of time which was lost in saying that there is no coordination and different political parties or the governments are not coordinating with each other, that might not happen so much this year.
But
though we still have one state.
Punjab doesn't have double engine sarkar.
Double engine sarkar, and that might still come up. And it's an irony that Punjab is a state which has been hit so badly this year by the floods, and that would have its ramifications on stubble burning as well. There can be both possibilities. One possibility is that a lot of crop is already lost to the floods, and that area has already been cleaned and is ready for the next crop because they couldn't harvest it. It has decomposed, and that would mean that those areas might not be burned. But there can be other side as well, wherein the crop has decomposed and the farmers couldn't harvest anything from it. They couldn't generate revenue from it, and now they don't have any money to in a way manage that stubble in a better way, and that's why the last resort left to them is burning it. We don't know what will happen. At least till now, we are seeing that the number of fire incidences are lower than last year. Is it because the burning hasn't started or doesn't start around this period of time at that scale? Or is it because the residue which is decomposing is still wet and waiting to be fired?
Right. Earlier, I was also speaking with some Punjab officials saying that this time the fire incidents may come down because a lot of farmers have lost their crops.
And now in such a situation, it is also very tricky for people like us who have been tracking this as an air pollution issue. But maybe I would more align towards that we shouldn't just let go of tracking those incidences or what's happening only because this region is hit with the flood and there has been huge economic loss to the farmers and all those things. This is not just 1 year phenomena. So there should definitely be tracking of what's happening, where is it happening. But how do we use that tracking? Is that tracking used to put red entries into farmers' books, or that is used to identify the locations where the incidences have started coming up and proactively going there and trying to provide avenues and ways of managing that stubble better? What the approach would be will also decide which government is pro-people, pro-farmer and trying to reduce air pollution. On the contrary, we can just keep saying that stubble burning is happening, farmers are burning it, and there will be red entries and all those things. That's a very different approach to be taken.
Right, stubble burning is a big issue.
It's very complicated. This year it has gotten even more complicated than last year. What I'm hopeful that because of better monsoon this year, at least the average air pollution levels till now are lower than last year. And I want it to continue, and there is a likelihood that we might have lower average pollution levels this year compared to last year, but the La Nino is also in effect, and that might result into some more stagnation and build-up of pollution. And so we'll have to wait and watch, but I agree with Vimlendu that it can be 5 microgram above or below the last year's average. The fact remains that last year we were at 102 to 104 microgram annual average air pollution levels. This year, even if it goes to 95, that's way hazardous. WHO says that anything around 5 or above 5 is hazardous to our public health, and we know that it follows a sigmoidal curve, which means that the maximum impacts happen at the lower concentrations, and once it crosses 30-40 microgram or whatever, the incremental impacts are relatively lower compared to at lower concentration. So doesn't matter we reduce it by 5 microgram or it increases by 5 microgram. The fact remains that not just Delhi, entire North India remains in a health emergency situation, and that might not change. We want to be hopeful. We still have some time left. We have a coordinated governance mechanism right now in Delhi and around Delhi, and we have the tools to know where the pollution is coming from. And
when this is my next question. So, Vimlendu.
So I just wanted to quickly add and also for Sunil to contribute further on this. One major setback that has actually happened in this large air quality campaign is this entire 10 years and 15 years vehicle conversation, by the way. The reason why I call this as a major setback, it's not just in terms of the pollution load shift that is there, but also the role of Supreme Court or the courts of our country. So if you look at largely, since as if you look at the entire MC Mehta case and otherwise pollution governance, if so to say, from CNG to after of Delhi, a lot of that has been driven largely by the courts of our country, Supreme Court, and then also partially by a National Green Tribunal. And what has unfolded in the country in the last 3 months or the last 6 months vis-a-vis conversation with regard to ban was there, but it's a very convoluted, very confusing narrative that ban hai on the 10-year and 15-year-old vehicles, but no one can challan you, and you can still use take fuel and so on and so forth. So, and for the courts of our country to go back on its own orders and diktat of ban, and suddenly after so many years questioning the data or the validity of data vis-a-vis old vehicles, do they pollute less or more, is a very unfortunate development, which I'm very sure Sunil will tell you more. But that is in a way, I feel that, a lot of times when we talk about coal, and then we talk about India's right to develop. Similarly, when we talk about stubble, and we talk about farmers' right to grow food and minimum income and so on and so forth. Similarly, this middle class love and affection for their old cars, that has actually taken over, and all the TV stations that really were campaigners of air pollution this season, they were all campaigners for old cars, because every journalist felt, and every news channel felt, and my lords and lordships and everyone thought that, oh, no, old car, how can you let go of it? So that I also feel that, in the larger air quality conversation in our country, we've gone several narratives down, very regressive narrative that has been supported by the Supreme Court of our country. Very unfortunate. And I'm sure Sunil will assist all of us with more data points in terms of roadworthiness and car worthiness and airworthiness and the fakery that revolves around it.
So, my next question is, there have been a lot of studies on sources of air pollution in Delhi and NCR cities. Could you tell us, our viewers, what is contributing to Delhi's air pollution? What are the major contributors?
So basically, I think there's a lot of study that has already happened, and and a lot of times we talk about Center for Science and Environment and their studies. The most recent one that talks about almost 50% of pollution can be attributed, at least of Delhi-NCR, can be attributed to vehicular pollution. And indeed, within that vehicular pollution, largely we're talking about private vehicles in that sense. So vehicular pollution, almost 50%. Again, different studies, depending on who is the study maker in that sense. Sometimes it can change. I'm sure if the coal lobby will do a study, they will tell you that no, they don't pollute. They're the cleanest thing ever. But around 20-25% indeed is, of course, dust that we talk about. And largely we talk about road dust and construction and demolition dust. Of course, it ranges. Also, a lot of this pollution, by the way, these numbers changes depending on the month, and the geographical conditions, right? The ability for dust to go from point A to point B is very, very different in the month of June and will be very, very different in the month of November. Therefore, to have a 365 days uniform data, one data to talk about pollution configuration or the sources would be slightly difficult. But largely, we're talking about vehicular pollution. We're talking about dust, roadside dust and construction and demolition dust, open burning of garbage, 100-kilometer periphery of Delhi and the coal thermal power plants that operate in the immediate periphery. Indeed, there are also episodic sources of pollution. Then, therefore, in the month of November, the source of pollution, indeed, almost 5 to 10%, and sometimes it could range to 40%, could be because of stubble. And that could also depend on the wind direction in that sense. So again, as I said, geographical conditions. And similarly on Diwali. So there are episodic sources of pollution on certain days because of that event and geographical climatic conditions. There are other factors.
Right. I also want to talk about the meteorological conditions that Delhi has. To what extent meteorological conditions contribute to air pollution? Because I was talking to somebody from CAQM, Commission for Air Quality Management. So they were saying that to rid Delhi of air pollution is not possible because the climatic conditions are such where during winter the wind speed is low, wind direction, northwesterly winds are contributing to air pollution. So my question is to you, ma'am. Do you think that that if meteorological conditions were not there in Delhi, it would have been much easier for Delhi government or other government authorities to improve Delhi's air quality?
For this, we'll have to go a little back in time. Earlier, Punjab and Haryana farmers used to start sowing for paddy right at the beginning of June. So the crop would mature before the wind direction changed towards the end of monsoon. And therefore, even when they were burning crop that time, the wind direction was not towards Delhi or towards the Indo-Gangetic plains. And that's why that pollution did not reach here. Now what has happened, over the years they extracted so much of groundwater that the government had to make a rule, as in law, not to start sowing before 15th of June. Now that gap reflects here and the wind direction changes. And because of this, if you notice, I mean, most of us have been living in Delhi for long, and we don't remember this kind of pollution before 2000 or 2010 even. It all started happening after 2010. Coming back to the present, the wind direction change is not in our hands. It's like centuries this has been happening. What we can possibly do is, and the efforts have been going on, to wean away Punjab and Haryana farmers from paddy plantation. The MSP offered for other crops has been steadily increasing, but it's so small an amount that farmers still continue to go for paddy. That is one aspect. So that will change very slowly, because that time gap is crucial, and that's why that leads to crop burning. Second thing, if we look at Delhi or Delhi-NCR's geography, this fog is there in winters. Fog is what? I mean, it's a cloud which comes to near the Earth's surface, and lack of wind direction, speed. So what happens in case of fog? Earlier it happens in case of pollution also. Because Delhi is landlocked, there is no way. Like for instance in Mumbai, the pollution gets swept away because there's this constant exchange of winds, land and sea. There's no such thing happening in Delhi-NCR because we are landlocked. So there are a lot of reasons, and very slowly we are working on only some aspects of it.
The air pollution is nothing but an end result of what are we emitting and how the meteorology is able to disperse it or not. We can't control the second one. The only thing we can control is our emissions. And that is why using meteorology or weather conditions as an argument to say that there is no way we can clean it is in a way saying that we know that our transport sector is really bad, but we don't want to incentivize public transportation and do away with the private transportation.
Yeah, very pessimistic observation from CAQM officials.
So, CAQM is also trying to do a lot of things, but while it is a fact that we don't have favorable meteorology during the winter times, but we have something called graded response action plan, we have something called decision support system, we have something called data and tools and technology at our hand, which can tell us in 5 days from now, if you don't do anything, if things go business as usual, the air quality will deteriorate to hazardous levels or poor level. If we know that this is going to happen in 5 days or 3 days, we can take actions. We can tell those polluting industries in the upwind direction, saying that next 5 days meteorology is going to be really unfavorable. Wind is going to come over the geography where you are located. So please stop that operation or reduce the operation or have the state-of-the-art technology to control pollution. Similarly, we can tell the farmers, or like farmers burn it because one, they don't have the window between the paddy harvest and the wheat sowing. That window has reduced. Second,
from the Kharif to Rabi.
And second, they don't have somebody picking up this stubble from them. It is a burden on them that they collect it, they put it somewhere, store it, and then nobody comes and buys it. So if government provides the mechanisms to take away the stubble which is there in a way that it doesn't get burnt, and secondly, if because of the entire groundwater situation, the crop cycle was changed and all those things happened. So if there are other crops with better MSP, anyways, those are long-term solutions. But if the government wants, it can anticipate the pollution levels in next few days, and it can also restrict the air quality deteriorating to those categories. And the entire premise of graded response action plan was that we will predict and we will avoid going to that situation. While what happens right now is once we reach a certain category, we tell that now stop all these activities. That's not how it should be. A truck which is about to enter Delhi, has been loaded in Sonipat, Panipat or Karnal, Kurukshetra, anywhere, has traveled 5 hours and came to the boundary or the toll booth at the Delhi entry, and suddenly GRAP is introduced, and that truck has been told that you can't enter Delhi now because GRAP stage 3 is in place or whatever. Is that the right way to do it? Maybe not. If we can anticipate and precautionary reduce the operation of polluting activities, we can still have slightly better air quality, though having air quality which is really breathable in Delhi will take long time, because we are around 100 and breathable air quality is we can say globally is assumed at 5 microgram. Even if we achieve 30, Indian standard of 40 microgram, we can still do with it for next few years. But it is going to take time. It is very complicated, but it is doable.
And the other is disproportionate attention that we pay to agriculture or the farmers. No doubt stubble burning needs to go, but this entire obsession that the middle class media and policy making has towards calling out the farmers is slightly disproportionate, because there are other 365-day issues which we do not want to do anything about, but our radar and our antenna goes up when it comes to stubble burning. And disproportionately. So that's my 2 bits with regard to air pollution. Because as much as Sunil says nice things about CAQM, I think institutions like CAQM should just be dismantled, because their mandate is not just to be an association. It's not an RWA. It is an association that is supposed to, that has enormous powers. We had something called EPCA. Now EPCA ke badle now we have CAQM. I'm very sure there'll be a new judge who will come up with something new in that sense. But unless and until strategic, substantial, long-term, indeed, planning, and therefore, factoring that in your budget, factoring that in your policy making, both at the national level, regional level, and state level, if that doesn't happen, all of this is just, Ram Bharose.
No, but I would like to add one small point here. Irrespective of what CAQM does or not does, one thing is, at least thanks to CAQM, we now know that the government is actually considering an airshed approach, which was missing earlier. And the same can be now extended to entire Northwest India.
So I wouldn't say that CAQM brought in the airshed approach. That's like, if you look at
I'm not saying CAQM brought it. I'm saying government identified that airshed approach needs to be there, and then came the CAQM.
Yeah, then National Clean Air Program in 2019 very clearly mentions that any city doesn't work in isolation. Air pollution flows from outside inside. And CAQM might be the only body right now which can take actions, not just advise or come up with orders or guidelines, but they are empowered to take actions in the larger airshed of Delhi, not just Delhi. They can suspend a agricultural superintendent or officer in Punjab. They can shut down a coal-based power plant in Haryana. They can do anything. They have immense power. And I agree with Vimlendu that those powers haven't been utilized or used till now. We are like, every year we are seeing them exploring one new power they have, and if we go by that dialogue, if we go by that analogy, it will take at least next 10 to 20 years to resolve this crisis. But they have immense power. They can do a lot, and they haven't done enough. So I agree to that. But what I definitely also agree with when Vimlendu was saying that it is not just about blaming farmers or individual car owners, or we saying that everybody needs electricity and that's why we need to burn coal. The problem, the solutions, though people have to be part of it, they have to come through the system or from the system, because a power plant, how is it generating electricity, how is it regulating air pollution level, cannot be decided by a person consuming that electricity. It has to be decided by the system. Farmers and individual car owners are an easy target for the government.
Bhavreen Khandari has joined us. Thank you so much for joining us. We are discussing the sources of air pollution, and vehicular pollution is the largest contributor to Delhi's air pollution, Delhi-NCR's air pollution. So I just want to talk about the public transport system, why it's broken, why it's unreliable. Is it enough? Does it have capacity to ensure that Delhi uses public transport and Delhi people are not going for private vehicles? As you said, like, we always blame private ownership of vehicles. Delhi, I think in 2023, 2024, there were some 80 lakh vehicles registered in Delhi. And there are some, I think there are 60 lakh households in Delhi. So almost every household has one vehicle. And out of those 80 lakh vehicles, almost around 30 are four-wheelers.
We were just again looking at the data, and every month there are around 5 lakh vehicles which are registered in Delhi. Out of those 5 lakh, more than 3 lakh or around 3.5 lakh are just two-wheelers.
Yes.
More than a lakh are four-wheelers. What does that tell us? One, that Indian middle class has an aspiration to own a vehicle. Where did that aspiration start? Because whenever anybody had to go to a hospital, college, school, market, 20 years before today, they didn't have any public transportation system. Only those who had their own personal vehicle could access education, could access healthcare, could access market, or could even go and visit their relatives. So their mobility represented their freedom. And that stayed, that continued, and because of that people started buying their personal vehicles. And then we reached a situation where the government thought that people will take care of their own mobility and we don't really need to, and that's why over last 3-4 decades the government was never able to supply the public transportation which is needed. And right now when we look at like Delhi having 10,000 buses or 11,000 buses is not a new thing. In early 2000s it was proposed that Delhi need, like around 2000s, Delhi needed 10,000 buses. We still don't have
Still, the government says that Delhi needs 11,000 buses.
11,000
so
buses.
in the last 25 years, the number hasn't changed.
And the rerouting and routes which they take, all those things, they keep changing. And now, at least in certain areas, I see that certain localities which didn't have last mile connectivity, now this Devi service.
And population has increased tremendously, and Delhi is expanding everywhere.
Yeah, and that is why the number of buses is not increasing, though we have metro. And just imagine if metro stops for a week, Delhi will come to a standstill. All those people. Buses number are not increasing. The petrol and diesel vehicles, though electric vehicle penetration is increasing, and we have to understand it from an example. If EV penetration was 2% and the base vehicle number was 100, and now we say EV penetration has increased to 8%, but the total number of registered vehicle has increased to 500. What that means is just
absolute
number of petrol vehicle and diesel vehicles is increasing, and that is what is happening in Delhi, and that is also reflected in the petrol and diesel consumption.
But in terms of percentage, the EV vehicles share in new registration has increased to 12%, which is encouraging.
It is encouraging. If that would not have been 12%, the pollution levels would have been still higher. But that doesn't mean that has eaten up the share of petrol vehicles or diesel vehicles. If the EV vehicles have increased from 2 to 12, the petrol vehicles have increased from 92 to 500. Right. And the proportion, absolute number has increased, and that is why the air pollution levels are not coming down. Early 2000s में जब CNG आया तो air pollution levels में there was a drop in air pollution levels till 2006, but after that it started increasing again because the private vehicle ownership as well as industries and power plants in Delhi-NCR or larger area increased.
That turned the clock
So
back.
The absolute emission, we have not been targeting absolute emission load reduction neither in Delhi nor beyond Delhi and nor across any particular sector. Nobody is talking about it. Until and unless we start talking about absolute emission load reduction at a sectoral level, segregated by geography and fixed accountability and transparency in action, there is no way we can reduce air pollution levels. And that is an approach which we have to take. And sadly, like we say that we have a national clean air program, but even if Delhi can't reduce air pollution levels or can't take this approach, forget about any of those 131 cities that they can do it, because none of those cities gets the kind of attention which Delhi gets. None of those have the kind of bureaucracy which Delhi has. None of those have the kind of media which Delhi has.
And funding also.
And funding as well.
Nivedita ma'am, you have some data points that you want to highlight on vehicular pollution?
That data point, just adding to is this thing, data of vehicles. The Delhi Statistical Handbook 2024 data shows that there are cars and jeeps are 20.83 lakh. The motorcycles and scooters are 54.67 lakh. And taxis are just 85,000. Buses are only 17,000. And this is a number, not that all those are on roads. Now he talked about the aspiration level. So for these 54.67 lakh two-wheeler drivers, the very next aspiration is as and when they get certain increment, they are comfortable financially, they first think of buying a car. If these people are provided a good transport, very small walking distance from their house to the nearest bus stop with good functional AC buses, I mean, Mumbai has it, Chennai has it, Bangalore has it. They're functional, good quality AC buses, and which office white-collared people are using. Delhi people just don't want to go to buses because of the condition, pathetic condition of buses.
Right.
I mean, I really doubt if Delhi Transport Corporation officials have stepped into their own buses or not. I mean, if you ask me a solution, I would say first let them start using their buses so the conditions would improve.
Bhavreen, where do you stand on the public transport system in Delhi? How do you see it? Where it can be improved?
Yes, Shiva, of course, all the stars here have already spoken so much, and I'm sure they've said the things that need to be. I'd like to add to Nivedita that, one that our complete, narrative over the years that has been changed from public transport, that is in the real sense the buses, but, bringing in metro and then pretending like we have a public transport, appraisal or an improvement has taken us many steps back, because the masses that need to use the public transport, the last mile connectivity, etc., is only possible with the buses. And something like which many of us, I know I've heard Vimlendu say this from umpteen years on the number of buses that were lacking, without stating the data, that they needed to be added, they needed to be now. Even in the number that the existing numbers that we have, there is a huge number that is actually needs to be scrapped and replaced, or the number of breakdowns in a day. These are exorbitant numbers that it's government data. So obviously, not much is being done on that. Because like Sunil just now said, which is so, the policy must focus on the structural solutions rather than bring in something citizen versus citizens on reduce the overall car usage. This doesn't work.
Vimlendu, I want to come back to you about EV policy, which was announced by Delhi government in 2020. What's your assessment? To what extent it has succeeded?
With regard to EV policy, I think my only thing is that unless and until if your EV runs on coal at the end of the day, so it gives you a green card or a green name number plate. Looks green. It's a great greenwash. So I look at EV, of course, comparatively in many ways is better than perhaps your diesel or your petrol car. But it's an oxymoronous understanding of green vehicle or a clean vehicle if your vehicle still runs on coal. So it's immediate periphery, of course, immediate ambient air quality of Vimlendu Jha can improve because Vimlendu Jha has an EV. But overall, my using of that car or that one more car and therefore an EV car, does it actually improve the overall ambient air quality? Maybe gradually. The numbers Sunil knows better, but unless and until we address that, so then it becomes like a greenwash. The entire EV revolution in our country, without really looking at fossil fuel consumption or disposal of batteries and lead and other things, unless and until we look at those and address those issues, all of this we are almost looking at कि 20-25 का solve करते हैं, 20-40 में जब जो होगा देखा जाएगा. अगर हम 20-40 के बारे में अभी तक नहीं सोचेंगे और वही हम कर रहे हैं, हम स्टॉप गैप सॉल्यूशंस ढूंढते रहते हैं और आधे से ज्यादा सॉल्यूशंस रिडंडेंट हो जाएंगे 4 साल के बाद, क्योंकि फिर हम उन बैटरीज के बारे में बात करेंगे. हम
You've talked about some of the band-aid initiatives or band-aid measures taken by this government or the previous government. Earlier it was about smoke towers, it was about odd-even initiative. Now it has come down to cloud seeding and those smoke-eating coatings on the road. Sunil, how do you see these measures? Do these measures have any impact or?
Anything which doesn't reduce pollution at source or shift the technology or fuel itself to a less emitting is a band-aid solution. And these solutions will never be able to give us clean air. They might give a sense of that we are breathing clean for 5 minutes, 10 minutes or an hour till the time they are operational. But the cost of operation as well as the the footprint which Vimlendu was talking about. If an EV is running on coal, that's not really clean. Relatively cleaner than maybe a diesel vehicle, but it's still polluting somewhere else. Similarly, a smog tower which you are trying to operate and reduce air pollution levels in that 150-meter radius of a smog tower is again operated by electricity, which again comes from coal. So they are very, very fake solutions or band-aid solutions, which gives the sense of that there is something happening. These are big infrastructures which Vayu towers, smog towers, cloud seeding, they get all the attention. They are visible to public. Similarly, building flyovers, widening roads and all those things. Infrastructure investments or such false solutions, they get a lot of limelight, they get visible to people, and they have a lot of political mileage to be gained in a way, creating a false sense of that the governments are doing something, and they will never be able to give us clean air. The real solution will be when we either shift the polluting fuel to a cleaner fuel at the source, or even if we can't shift it in next few months, next few years, we can't get rid of coal just in 1 year across the country. But what we can do is we can install pollution control devices at those power plants. We can install better pollution control devices at the industries. We can shift the crop from paddy to crop diversification, and we can manage the stubble well and stop it from burning. So these are the only real solutions we have. Otherwise, any of these solutions will not work. Just in case of emergency, around a hospital where there are lots of people with respiratory diseases, if they are visiting, having some kind of indoor air purification system where they spend most time might work, but not in open air.
Right. No, you have worked extensively on industrial pollution and thermal power plants. You were saying that now 80% of thermal power plants don't need to install FGDs.
Yeah. So FGD.
If you could tell us how many power plants are there within 300 kilometer radius of Delhi, and what is their contribution, and how the government is giving a free pass to thermal power plants.
So there are about 12 power plants in and around 300 kilometers. So one power plant is just beyond the 300 kilometer radius, but there are 12 of them. Now, some of them, for example, Dadri, Jhajjar, they have installed flue gas desulfurization. Flue gas desulfurization technology is a technology to capture sulfur dioxide emissions from a power plant. And we all know that contribution of a power plant to overall pollution is majorly coming from secondary particulates which are generated from sulfur dioxide or nitrogen oxides. And that is why it was an important pollutant to be captured. Indian government came up with a notification to capture it in 2015, and that was based on scientific evidence, and also not just scientific evidence, but real world examples of countries and cities reducing pollution by adopting this technology. Beijing is an example. US did an acid rain program long back. So based on that,
it's a proven technology.
It is a proven technology. It has been implemented across different countries and cities globally, and India adopted it in 2015. Now, earlier this year, obviously the initial timeline was 2 years. The timeline for implementing it got extended multiple times, at least 4 to 5 times over last 10 years. And then ultimately this year, the notification has been diluted, and now there are only about 20% of the power plants, or not even 20% power plants. So it is mandatory for only 10% of the installed power generation capacity, coal-based power generation capacity, to install FGDs. The remaining extra 10%, they can take a decision on a case-to-case basis, and for 70% of the capacity, they don't need to install flue gas desulfurization. And one of the two big arguments which were used saying that we don't need it or we can't do it were, one, that it will increase the cost of coal-based power generation by 50-60 paisa. The other one was that there is no indigenous technology and we don't have the manufacturing capacity. Now, for the first argument, for about 100 gigawatt of the capacity or more than 50% of the capacity, the investments have already been made or the contracts have already been signed. And now that money, which is already spent in capital expenditure, will be recovered from the consumers. So the cost will anyways increase. It is just the variable cost or the operational cost which might not be a burden. But
so they've already spent on FGDs.
The consumer will end up paying more because somebody has spent that money and they will not even get better air quality to breathe. The other argument was that we don't have indigenous technology and not enough manufacturers, though this argument is also in a way very, very wrong, that we have enough of indigenous manufacturing capacity, and to the extent that about 60 gigawatt of capacity at one time can be manufactured in India and with more than 90% of indigenous content. So it was very minimal dependence on imported projects. Now coming to how much do they contribute, depending on what time of the year, again as Vimlendu was mentioning in the beginning, that what contributes to pollution of a city varies at different times of the year depending on the meteorological condition, and the contribution from power plants ranges from, on an average, from somewhere between 12% to 25%, and this can even, like for cities in Chhattisgarh or Jharkhand, this can go above 40%. So that is the level of contribution. Even in Delhi, on an average, around 14-15% comes from power plants. If on an annual basis, this one sector is contributing 12 to 15% of pollution, during certain times of the year, this will also go to 25%, 30%.
That's much more than stubble burning.
That's much more.
Yes.
Definitely. Stubble burning happens.
Stubble burning happens for a short period,
yeah.
and only because it's visible.
And it is easy to control. For reducing this 12% or 15% of the pollution, just 10 or 11 power plants have to retrofit something. To control stubble burning, there will be millions of farmers. I'm not saying that they shouldn't change their attitude and how they cultivate their land, or how do they manage their stubble.
But you're
that
saying thermal power plant is the low-hanging fruit,
which we should do immediately.
Immediate results.
Immediately, while we try to reduce stubble burning, road construction sector, and other things. So everything should go hand in hand. Some sectors
and it's the government that's taking the decision. And it's the government that should be implementing it. So it should be easier, right?
But there are some positives when we talk about stubble burning. Vimlendu has already said that disproportionately we talk about stubble burning in farmers in Punjab and Haryana. But if we compare data from last year, there were some 10,000 fire incidents compared to 39 or 40,000 in the previous year. So the number has significantly come down. But how do you see these numbers? Do you take the data with pinch of salt, or farmers have really stood up and said no to burning?
Right now, of course, last year's data said that there's been drastic improvement in Haryana in terms of numbers. Haryana and Uttar Pradesh has perhaps done better. Punjab also has done better. But again, as in with post-farm laws, the protests that were happening, the lot of pressure that comes from the Supreme Court in terms of why are there no challans happening? Why are you not challaning them? Why can't they be arrested? And as I said, middle class gets so angry about farmers and blaming it on farmers because it looks, the pollution is a visible source of pollution, and also the food growers. Why should they be, why are they doing this? And they pollute as if. We tend to forget that 330 days of Delhi's pollution is Delhi's own creation. It is not coming from Hisar or from or from Patiala or from, for that matter, Lahore in that sense. And that's the reason why I was talking about disproportionate. I think indeed there needs to be a conversation of crop diversification, incentivizing. We need to understand that it's not just about, as I said earlier, that it is not just an air pollution issue, not just from an anthropological lens point of view, but it is also a big cancer and water and other crises. So Punjab, it's not just the question of food security or food insecurity. There's a lot that is associated. And at least if I was at the policy level, I will not look at air pollution only as a singular lens, but I'll look at Punjab or food growing or the region and its overall water and pesticide and fertilizer map. And find a common solution, because Otherwise, try to solve water crisis, we ended up creating air crisis. We'll try to solve air crisis, we'll end up creating a cancer crisis.
If you have to tell government about the long-term and short-term solutions that can give results, what could be?
I think the first thing is to find a room. Get an OYO for yourself. All the ministers of all the states and the center, they should just book themselves a hotel room and start talking. I think one big missing thing is a collective, collaborative conversation. And this is nothing to do with, by the way, earlier we thought there were political opponents, that, in Delhi we had Aam Aadmi Party and we had Congress earlier in Punjab, and now there's Aam Aadmi Party in Punjab. In that sense, I think it's very important that everyone, and center will have to play a very, very important role. Central government, which is the big daddy, will have to really understand this and link this to a multisectoral approach. It cannot be a CAQM responsibility or Ministry of Environment and Forest. Ministry of Agriculture, Ministry of Transport, Ministry of Food, Ministry of Labor, Ministry of Human Resources. Every ministry, we need to really have that. And there's a lot of conversation in Niti Aayog about it. But again, the fact that it has happened for almost a decade and a half, the conversation, and still, if you're still stuck at source kaun sa hai bhai, it's therefore it means that there's something terribly wrong in the way our government is approaching. I think, of course, transport has to revolutionize, not just of Delhi, also of Gurgaon. Not just the air quality, even the water quality management has to change, because all these issues are interlinked. At the end of the day, it can be an air quality campaign, but an air quality campaign will have a longevity only if you also look at your water quality campaign and water management campaign, overall natural resources campaign, or tree and forest management campaign, your entire compensatory afforestation plan, so on and so forth. Unless and until all of that is woven together, you can do a poll on your channel that who is the Environment Minister of India. I do not know. I do not know who is the Environment Minister. I know, fine, it could be. I think he's busy now. He's got the Bihar ka in charge banaya unko shayad Bhupendra Yadav ko elections. Delhi, I don't know who the Environment Minister is. Do you know, Sunil, who the Environment Minister of Delhi is? But unfortunately, we don't even know who the Chief Minister of some of the states are, and that's very, very unfortunate in that sense.
Right. Vimlendu, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you.
Air pollution is a huge topic. I think we can continue discussing it for next 5 hours. But the last segment is about the impact of air pollution in Delhi and neighboring cities. Bhavreen, you have worked with concerned mothers who are anxious about the health of their children. You joined us late, but my first question was, how do you compare this winter with the previous winter, when we saw thousands of people lining up outside hospitals, people coughing and sneezing. And one study said that every third child in Delhi has underdeveloped lungs. Could you tell us about the health impact on children, on other vulnerable groups like the elderly?
Yes, I think, Shiva, we all see this. Anybody who's lived in Delhi, and someone like myself who's mostly grown up also in the younger years, we never saw this side of Delhi of getting up to an apocalypse or a complete smog driven city. Even 2016, the first time when the schools were shut down on the first day, and this movement came in, My Right to Breathe was born that day, was only because I think now we were seeing something that just some of us, a handful of us, were talking about for a few years. So this slowly started translating into, of course, what was being said by a lot of experts, doctors, scientists. They were saying this, and now we were seeing this in every home. When I grew up, we never heard this term nebulizer, or these the names of the various antibiotics that they're using today. And when my daughters, who have turned now 21, almost 22, they also grew up pretty much, because I resisted, we were doing more of, home remedies. We resisted of not giving. But now if you see today, the youngsters, the toddlers, probably every child is on a nebulizer in Delhi, or is probably, on some antibiotic or the other. So that this itself is a huge, a drastic change, and that has, come in these last few decades. And ultimately, I think something common to all of us is the health of our children, and that is the most important. Rather, why in our city, even globally, if you connect with anyone, whether it's a political leader, or it's your, a construction worker, or your own, people that you are living with each day, I think it's a common goal is that our children must always be healthy. So that is where I think this emotion that we try to create between, whether we are addressing to a chief minister, or you are, of course, like Vimlendu said, we don't know who and where they are. But yeah, it's sad that people like us are being invited by the mayors of maybe London, of Paris, of other cities, and who are talking about this, who appreciate that we are speaking about something which is so important. But in our own country, everyone avoids. There is a huge amount of resistance when we are putting this data, or we are producing these simple studies, like even the mothers going to their own local pharmacists and asking which medicines were sold. And the last winter, we did this little survey of going to your own local pharmacists, and we came out with alarming data for ourselves also, that every third customer was a child, or a parent, who was coming to buy medicines for the child. So something to do with breathing, respiratory, equipment, etc. So this is absolutely, very heartbreaking. The most important thing is that the compliances are being met. There is no scope for violations. If you're violated, you are accountable, you are punished. And punished means prosecution. Like this, Sunil was saying about the CAQM. Yes, they have the powers. Why are you stopping? Why is the Supreme Court and the high courts are giving only headlines of slamming and blaming or whatever? Why are they not, when the contempt cases are coming, why are they not punishing the officers? Because that is what is going to bring in, that is how the corruption will go, because everything is about that. You can have a PUC, you can make it better, you can empower it and all that, but what is happening? Because eventually somebody will be exchanging money to ensure that doesn't work.
Right.
So these are the things that needs to change.
Yeah, such a sorry state of affairs, and when we see there's a lack of political will. My last question to all of you, like, what are the structural solutions that you suggest, if you have to suggest to the government?
Okay, two suggestions. I'll follow the same format in which you Vimlendu was talking about, and what you were asking. One short-term solution which can be implemented over next few months. The other one which might take a little more time, but needs which can help reduce air pollution. Short-term one is, we have all the tools, we have all the data, CAQM, DPCC, CPCB. Everybody knows where the pollution is coming from, where will it come from in next 3 days. Where these polluting industries, power plants, or traffic hotspots, or the stubble burning are. So in next few months, if we can utilize those tools, the data, that system, and the bureaucracy and administration along with it, in terms of reducing the emission being emitted, we can reduce air pollution levels over next few months. We have everything. We even have the manpower capacity to do it, not at the pollution control boards, but in different departments, and different departments have to come together. So that's the more immediate solutions. The long-term solution is that we have to shift our approach from looking at just the PM 2.5 and PM 10 concentrations or amount of money being spent to reduce air pollution, and say that if our PM 10 data or PM 2.5 data is reducing, that means we are doing good on air pollution, or if we are spending the money, then we are doing good on air pollution. Both of these can be misleading. Pollution data can be misleading from two aspects. One, the meteorology can play huge role in diluting it, and because of that the pollution levels can come down while your activities are still equally polluting as they were earlier. And second, we have seen from National Clean Air Program 15th Finance Commission funding utilization that the money which goes to the cities at times is spent on activities or infrastructure creation which favors more pollution generation rather than reducing it. Flyovers are an example of it. Road widening is an example of it. So these are not the right indicators. We can keep these, but we have to come up with better indicators of looking at whether a city, for activities under its control, municipal corporation for that example, for activities under its control, and the state governments for activities which are not within the control of municipal corporations, such as brick kilns, thermal power plants, other industries, stubble burning, all of them have to have their own set of different indicators and their linked accountability, saying that a city will only be considered working in the right direction of reducing air pollution if it reduces the registration of personalized vehicles and increases the public transportation and modal shift to public transportation or non-motorized transport. We'll only consider a city doing well enough to reduce air pollution levels if their petrol consumption starts reducing. We are not saying that it starts reducing next month, because these are long structural changes, governance changes, regulatory changes which we have to bring in. But we can at least say the cities will have to bring up some infrastructure, and that might take some time. So for next 1 year, it will still go up, but then we are setting a cap that you cannot go above this and you have to start coming down. Similarly, we have seen examples in Delhi that in 2018, 5 or 6 coal-based power plants were shut down, saying that their pollution is coming to Delhi. And now what we are seeing is that their operation levels are going up, their pollution control technologies are not being operated, and then there are new coal-based power plants. One in Khurja, which is just 70-kilometer aerial distance from Delhi, is being set up this year. When the wind blows from that side, we'll have additional pollution. There are proposals of setting up new power plants in Yamunanagar and Panipat as well. If they come up, we'll have higher pollution. And all these things are happening only because we are not looking at the right indicators and we don't have fixed accountability. So if we start saying that overall emission load of the city and the area beyond it across all sectors has to come down, and every sector has this one particular emission load reduction target, then we will be going in the right direction. And these are a bit long-term or medium-term changes which we have to bring in through our governance restructuring, regulatory restructuring, and model shift, which will also need a lot of investment. And investments will just the public investments will not be enough. We need private equity investment as well. So these are long-term changes.
Yeah, Nivedita, what do you suggest long-term and short-term solutions?
2-3 things. One, we are talking a lot about how thermal power plants are adding to Delhi's pollution. But we are not talking enough to check the overall reduction in electricity use that comes from coal. Like Delhi has had a rooftop solar policy for years, but it's not at all effective. So if we have a solid rooftop policy which actually encourages people to use all the rooftop, there can be a substantial reduction in the requirement of coal-powered electricity coming to Delhi. So we have a possibility in that, and yet we have not explored it or practiced it in that way.
And these small changes can go a long way.
Yes.
Definitely.
Second, as I said earlier about the buses, and we have talked about number of buses, but as I said earlier, in Bangalore we have seen AC buses and white-collar people actually using those. People don't use those buses here because the pathetic condition of buses. So not just we need more buses, but we need good quality, well-maintained buses. I mean, it's a doable story in itself to find out the condition of the buses. Third thing, just as it's equally important that the government or the agencies do their bit, it's also the onus on the citizens, common citizens. Can I travel a little myself more and not take my own car everywhere? If I have the option of going by metro, taking the last mile connectivity of, say, an auto rickshaw, why not? How many Delhiites are doing that? No. Most of the people who will have their own vehicle, two-wheeler or a four-wheeler, they'll prefer kaun time khapayega, because taking my vehicle makes me reach point A to point B in 35 minutes. But if I take the metro, it will be 1 hour. But then I'll have to plan it. So everybody needs to pitch in. And the last, we have talked enough about lack of greenery. There are lots and lots of nature-based solutions. But despite the fact that Delhi has a lot of greenery, and despite the fact that Delhi has lots of urban forest, it's just not enough. So we need to have less and less of these parking spots and more of green spots.
Right, Bhavreen, what do you suggest long-term and short-term solutions for the government?
So, long term is, of course, that's something I think many have mentioned here also, that you have to set, these binding emission reduction targets, and with, the legal aspect, the legal teeth. So, maybe mandate the annual PM2, the trajectory for PM2.5, SO2, NO2, etc., and that has no scope of then, shirking from it. That's the problem. We may do it on paper, but then again, you tend to, reverse it, etc. And tie these targets then to the local and state performance, various metrics like, budgets, grants, promotions. So obviously then the states, work towards it. But again, there's a thin line between actually doing what it is and a greenwashing. So I can't even think how that works. And, making these, strong public facing, transparency mechanisms, which are, mandate the proactive disclosure of emissions, etc., inspection records. Now, like for the waste to energy, we've been fighting so much on OE, CMS data, etc. Still, it's difficult to kind of find it. So, those kind of that kind of transparency, court outcomes, the violation notices. These are things that I think are much needed. They exist. It's not like they don't exist. They exist, but they exist in a very superficial way that it's not easy for anyone or an ordinary citizen as myself to find it.
Yeah, it has to be multi-pronged approach, multisectoral approach with seamless coordination across state governments. But what I surmise from the observation that you have made, that it doesn't look rosy in the upcoming winter. It's the more the things change, the more they remain the same. Thank you so much, all of you, for joining us.
I would still be hopeful. We still have time. We have everything at our hand. We have data, tools, systems, manpower, everything. So I'm still hopeful. We can do slightly better than last year.
Right.
We have to be hopeful. Otherwise, it's a very
yeah, I can also afford to be hopeful. But thank you so much, Sunil, Nivedita, Bhavreen, and Vimlendu, for joining us. And viewers, if you want to join our campaign, Fight to Breathe campaign, you can scan the QR code flashed on the screen. You can participate. You can give us comment. You can give your comment, your observation, what we can do better, what areas in air quality sector we should cover. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you.